Today, I've got a story for you. A story filled with motivation, passion, ambition. But above all, today's story is centered around love. This is the story of Wordle. But for real though, I never really got into Wordle. It wasn't much for me, but I understand it is massively popular and massively easy to use. Anyone can get into it. I see the appeal. But I was looking up about Wordle because anytime something doesn't exist and then all of a sudden it is absolutely everywhere, I like to try and find out why. So I looked into the story and it's a very interesting story. Very interesting. Now, before we get into that, I should probably cover the basics in case there is anyone out there who doesn't know what Wordle is, which will be like the smallest sliver of people. Hey, if you don't know what Wordle is and if you've never heard about it, do leave a comment, let me know. Guarantee, scroll down to those comments, there won't be a single comment from anyone who says they don't know what Wordle is. Everyone knows, but just in case, let's cover it. What is Wordle? Wordle is an online word guessing game made up of a 5x6 grid, with a new mystery word for players to guess each day. The 5 squares across represent the single letter in the 5-letter word for the day, and the 6 rows each represent one guess at what the day's secret word is. But you already knew that. So how, what, where did Wordle even come from? Wordle started as a humble independent game played amongst friends and family of one developer named Josh Wardle in June 2021. This is Josh Wardle, and he is the protagonist of our story today. So let's start from the beginning. Josh Wordle is from South Wales and he was brought up on an organic livestock farm. He attended university at Royal Holloway, University of London, and earned a degree in media arts. A few years later, he moved to the United States of America to attend the University of Oregon, where he graduated with a Master of Fine Arts in Digital Art. So after completing graduate school, Wardle moved to Oakland, California, and began working as an artist at Reddit in 2011. Later on, he will become one of Reddit's first production managers, serving as product manager for the community engineering team. In this position, he created popular collaborative experimental games such as The Button in 2015 and Place in 2017. Now, if you're not big on Reddit, let me explain what these are. So The Button was a social experiment that featured an online button and 60-second countdown timer that would reset each time the button was pressed. The experiment, which started beginning of April 1st, 2015, April Fool's Day, and was active until June 5th, 2015. It was basically just an online button where if you press it, it resets, but once it goes to 0, that's it, no more button. And it was a social experiment to see how long it would last for. I think I vaguely remember that the further it went down, like if you left it to the last second to press it, you got some kind of achievement on Reddit, which was, so it was a social experiment. The Place was a collaborative project and another social experiment hosted once again on Reddit, once again on April Fool's Day, this time 2017, and it also got repeated again April Fool's Day 2022. The experiment involved an online canvas located at a subreddit called Our Place, where users could edit the canvas by changing the colour of a single pixel with a replacement from a 16-colour palette. Basically, it was one big picture that anyone could get involved with, but you could only change the colour of one thing. The experiment was to see whether or not people would do something fun, light-hearted, or if people would try and draw something like, a big cock on it, which was difficult to do because you could only change one thing, so you had to group together with a bunch of other people. And I suppose it's very easy to, get together with a load of people from your country and let's do our flag, as opposed it is to convince a bunch of strangers to draw a big cock on it. But that was another experiment. That was his idea. That was Josh Wardle. He left Reddit for almost 2 years to work as a software engineer at Pinterest before returning to Reddit also as a software engineer. Then we get to one of his greatest achievements, the start of the ever so popular game Wordle, which, if you've not guessed by now, is a play on his own name, Wordle. So the game's origin, it traces back to 2013, very long time ago, but this was a very rough version of it. So in 2013, he started it. He was experimenting with word games and Android app development type of thing. Fun fact, the first ever answer for Wordle was cigar. That was the first ever word. The first word of Wordle, cigar. That's going to be a pub quiz question, so lock that in your mind, Palace. Now, the original Wordle was very different than the one we know today. The original featured endless play and a much larger word bank encompassing the English language, roughly at about 13,000 five-letter words. But he workshopped it. He workshopped the experiment with his partner, for whom he originally set out to make the game. We'll come back to that, but he decided to whittle down the list. Then he dropped the idea, he said, for about 6 or so years. It wasn't taking off that much. People didn't really like it, so... And by people, I meant his partner, which he made it for, wasn't a big fan. Friends didn't like it, so we left it alone. As for the inspiration for the game, it was inspired by a game in the New York Times. They used to have this game in their newspaper called Spelling Bee, which was a similar kind of premise. Himself and his partner would love to play this game Spelling Bee. They would always play it every day together, which is why he decided to make Wordle. He decided to make it for her, out of love. For his partner, he wanted to make her a game, not for the money, not for everyone else who ended up getting involved in it, but just for his partner, which is why when she didn't like the first idea, he had dropped it for so long. It was way too complicated, she didn't like it, it wasn't worth it. Then in 2021, he returned to the idea during lockdown when no one had anything to do and him and his partner was playing word games again. He thought, you know what? I'm going to return to that idea I had some time ago, aka Wordle. He took that initial list of 13,000 five-letter words, many too obscure for a fair game, and himself and his partner narrowed down the list to about 2,500 eligible words, which is actually enough to last for the next 7 years, but only if he chose just one word a day, which is exactly what he did. This one word a day gave this sense of urgency, or this sense that, it's not time consuming. You're not going to get lost in the game. You can do it when you're on the toilet in the morning. Nobody knows. It's just one word once a day. A sense of urgency, which is what really added to this virality of it. So he was setting it up every day for his partner. His friends wanted to get involved. So he launched it on a website, a bare bones website, not an app, not anything too complicated, just a website. And it went public on the website in October 2021. In the first few weeks of it being public, I had less than 100 people, which is probably a lot more than he expected, but not a lot. By early January 2022, 300,000 people were playing on any given day. That's a whole lot of people. And get this, by the end of that month, by the end of January, there were millions. It went from October, less than 100 people, to January, 300,000 people, to the end of January, with millions and millions of people playing the game. And all because he put it online, which was just for his friends to be able to play. But it was never what he wanted to do. He never wanted to monetize it. He never, he didn't want the stress of it. He just did it for his partner. So what does he do? He sells the game. He sold it to New York Times for roughly 1 million, but this is an undisclosed amount. So people are assuming between 1 and 5 million, which is ironic because if you remember, the inspiration behind it was a New York Times game called Spelling Bee. That inspired the game, and then later on, New York Times would buy this game from him. That's crazy. And for between 1 and 5 million, that's a whole lot of money. So this man, this Josh Wardle, went from your average man, and I'm assuming, working as software engineer, Pinterest, Reddit, pretty average wage as well. Not necessarily wealthy, not necessarily well known. Went from all that to becoming incredibly wealthy, respected, and admired. And why? Why? Because he made a game for one person, his partner. He didn't try and develop a game that would be addictive. He didn't try to develop a game that would get millions of people playing it or that was suitable for loads of people. He did it for one person. What does this one person like? And what will this one person want to do? That was it. He made it for one person. And it turns out there's millions of people that have a lot in common with that one person and would also enjoy playing the game. He wasn't motivated by money. He wasn't motivated by getting people to stay on the website for longer or to become addicted to the game. He was motivated by love. And ain't that just a motivating story? No app, bare bones website, anyone can do that. Simplistic idea, anyone can have a simple idea. It's so simple and yet it just worked beautifully. It didn't even have a creative name at the end of the day. Wordle. It's just named after himself.